So budgeting is a really important way for you to make sure that you have enough money to run all of your activities, but also that we're spending money in the best way possible for people living with Parkinson's in your area. Now, it's no longer a requirement to submit a budget with your annual financial returns, but we do really recommend that you complete one anyway to ensure that you can identify any shortfalls and you know where your money is going. And this will help to ensure that donors have confidence that we are spending money in the best way possible. To that end, we have created the local budget template. So this is different to any you may have been used to in the past, but hopefully a bit more simple to use. So starting here, any of the grey boxes, the pale grey boxes, are boxes that you need to update and add figures into, and anything blue will total automatically for you. So let's, for argument's sake, say that there's £1,000 in the bank. You can see here that has updated your opening balance, your closing balance, and any surplus transfers. Now, those groups that cash pool are not required to transfer their surplus funds, but it's really important to think about where the best use of that money is going to be. It's unlikely that sitting in a bank account for years is going to make any difference to people with Parkinson's. But if you have any spare cash and you think, actually, we'll transfer this, you can choose where it goes centrally. It might be research, it might be improving services, it might just be into general funds, but it's much more good for people if it's being used rather than sitting in that bank account. So down here, you've got all the different categories that link with the cash book. So you can go through and add in your budgeted income and your budgeted expenditure. Now, sometimes it can feel a bit unsure as to what you're going to, how you work out these figures, but a good way to go is to look at your previous accounts for maybe the last 2 or 3 years. So donations, for example, lots of people say to me, well, I have no idea what to expect in donations because it's people choose to do it. It's not a regular thing. But if you go back and you look at your accounts for, say, the last 3 years, what you can do is total up what was in there. So it might be, let's say you had £300 one year, £200 another, and last year you did fantastically with £450. So it's £950, and then just divide that by 3 to give you an average. £316. What I would also then do is perhaps just knock 10% off. So we'll knock this down to 300 just to keep it a nice round number. It's not an exact science, but it will help you. And don't forget to take off anything like if Mr. and Mrs. Smith had a golden wedding anniversary and instead of gifts, they asked for donations to Parkinson's UK to your local group, because they're not having that again, and that will have increased your donations for that particular year. Similarly with expenditure, some things are straightforward. If you run an exercise class, you'll have a good idea of how much that costs you, but I would add 10% off on. So if it's normally £450, or perhaps knock that up by 10% is £495, I think. And in the notes section, you can just say how you've worked this out. So total income in last 3 years was, I think you said £300, £200, and £450. Working out the average and taking off 10% gives this figure. We've got the notes then, and you can see how you've worked it out. If you have to step away from your role, or if a staff member needs to support you, we can see how we've come to that figure. What we've also done here, and you can see it's totaled up for you. So if we say actually your group social meetings, you've worked it out and they cost you £300, it totals it up at the bottom here. and then it works out your income and your expenditure and your budgeted closing balance. This will help you to identify if you're going to have enough money to run for the year. But we've added an extra budget here for you to help you to work out some of these figures. So you may decide you're going to start a new exercise class. You're going to do it weekly, term time only, so 36 sessions in a year. Your venue costs £25 an hour, and you'll be using the venue for 2 hours. This totals it up for you. Cost of speakers or service providers. So you might find that your exercise instructor is £50 per session. Any additional costs, so you might have refreshments in here, they cost £10 a session. You may have annual costs, you can update that. And then on the income side, you're unlikely to have a subscription cost for something like exercise, but you know that 15 people come to the class and they pay £5 a person. Now you can see here there's a deficit for this activity. So that can help you identify, do we need to charge more money? Do we want to fundraise for this? It will give you an idea there. So in this case, we might say, actually, we're going to charge £7. It's only £180 deficit. We can pick that up through fundraising. And then you can use these figures to complete your main budget. So 3,960, we expect our exercise to be, and we expect our income to be 3,780. Really easy to work out, and you can see it's updated there and it's updated up here. Hopefully that's helpful, but if you aren't sure, you can always contact your local staff contact or Dal, Raj and James in the finance team using treasurers@parkinsons.org.uk.